I'm Shannon Penrod. We had a wonky little moment there. We had some gremlins attack, but Kelby took care of it. He slayed them. Welcome to the show. Yes, it's true. We are back. We are live this week. We have shows scheduled for today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And as long as my voice holds out, I'm going to be here. The rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated, right? But I was one sick Chiquita. I hope that all of you are feeling well. We are so thrilled to be back here because we've had so much to talk to you about, and I'm so excited that we're going to be showing you some of the things that we went and did when we were in Texas today, because Kelby has been hard at work while I was hard at work trying to breathe. But thrilled to be here with you this morning. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, as long as everything works, right? We're thrilled that we're able to take this time to talk with you about autism from a 360-degree perspective. Nothing's off the table. Nothing is outside the realm of possibility for us to talk about. Want to remind you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We want you to participate with us. There's lots of different ways in which you can do that. Kelby is going to remind you of some of those ways while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's so many things to do, but most importantly, we want to be interacting with you, right? So you can be watching the live show. All you have to do is click on the little triangle on the screen. That will get you either the live show or the most recently recorded live show. To the side of all that is what we call the live feature. It's a series of white boxes. If you'll put your cursor in the one that says your questions, type, hit enter. It will show up here on my screen. You and I can be having a conversation, and more importantly, you can have a conversation with some of the fabulous guests that we feature here on the show. We feature guests and experts who are willing to answer your question in real time. Now, I know that the vast majority of you, when you're watching these shows, aren't able to watch them live, and you know what? That's okay. We started this whole thing because I was fatoutsed as an autism parent that there were all these amazing things happening in conferences that I couldn't get my person to, right? Because where was my kid? Where was his therapy? Where was his program? And how was I going to afford all that? And to take time away to go be someplace and travel. But I felt gypped. Like, why don't I get to participate in all the questions and things that those people are doing? And honestly, during the times that they were available, I wasn't available. So we really want to make this show for you, the possibility for you to have the reach to get to all of those people on the schedule that you want. So you guys can be watching the show at any time, and feel free. The live feature is supposed to be open all the time now. So if you're watching something and you see it and you go, well, I wished I'd been watching it live because I would have asked them a question. You know what? Ask the question anyway, because we know where to get those people. We know how to get them on the phone. We know how to get them back on the show, or we can just connect you with them via email sometimes, not with everybody, obviously, but so that you can continue to ask questions. So ask those questions no matter what time, day or night. But I will ask you, if you're not watching the live show, to reference who it is you're talking about. So a lot of times you guys will write in and say, well, when she was talking about the fish, and I don't know who she is, and I can't remember the fish. Let's remember that I gave up being a mind reader to be an autism mom, and heaven knows my memory went with that. Poof, poof, gone, right? So in any case, write in, tell us who you want to hear more from, what you want to hear about, what questions you have, what things that you would like to see covered on the show. I do like to remind you that when you write into us, please know that we do have a lot of experts who are on the show. I am not one of them. I'm an autism mom. As many of you know, my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. I'm a former teacher, but that, you know, that and a sack of beans and I can go plant a bean field, right? You know what I'm saying? Not an expert, but I have a passion for this subject. Like so many of you, I want to learn more. I want to be better. I want to be the best parent that I can be. And I want to help all of you to get to the information that you need. Whether you are a parent, you are a practitioner, you're a teacher, you're a grandparent, an aunt and uncle, or you yourself are someone who is on the autism spectrum and looking for answers. We want to be of service to you to help you to get to the good stuff, right? Just remember, I'm not an expert, but I'm in your corner. And sometimes that's almost as good, right? Okay, we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what are those experts talking about, and more importantly, what does this have to do with my life, and how can I make my life better if I take the time to learn what they're talking about. So today's term, it's partially, this occurred to me at a meeting that I was at the other day, that we talk about what antecedents are, but we don't really talk that much about antecedent modifications. And that's something that will come up in meetings if we are talking about a program for a person who is on the autism spectrum. Antecedent modification, what are we talking about? And Kelby just gave you a hint to something that we're going to be talking about later on. That I saw it, Kelby, and I got very excited. My blood pressure. We're having gremlins today. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so antecedent modification, but you did see a spaceship, and we are going to talk about a Saturn V spaceship in just a few minutes. Okay, antecedent modification. Antecedent modification, when environmental modifications are used to change the conditions in the setting that prompt a learner with ASD to engage in an interfering behavior. Dun, 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 dun. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we do jargon, because even now I know what an antecedent modification is, and I read that, and I'll be honest with you, I just want to light my hair on fire and run screaming in the street and go, what? What are you talking about? I don't even know what that means. Okay, so let's continue on to our working definition, and let's make some BCBAs break out in hives, shall we? Okay, antecedent modification. Changing what happens before a behavior happens for the purpose of preventing the behavior. Okay, so we've talked before about antecedents, that when we're talking about behavior, I call it the ABCs of behavior. They call it the three-term contingency. More jargon, right? Okay, but just think of the ABCs. We all know our ABCs, or we know at least the beginning of it, right? A, B, C. So in behavior, the A stands for antecedent. And what that means, don't get scared, antecedent means what happened before, right? That's been one of our jargon terms for a while. What happened before? Because something happened. We always think it didn't. You know, the child engages in a behavior and we think that behavior popped out of thin air, fully formed. It didn't. Something happened, and then the B is the behavior and the C is the consequence, right? And this is not just in autism. This is in everyday life. There is always an A, a B, and a C. The example I always like to use is that every day you and I, at some point, we're doing something and we stop what we're doing and we get up and we walk over and we turn on a light switch, right? And why do we do that? There was an antecedent. Something happened. We were struggling to read, or we walked into the room. Something happened, though. We didn't just suddenly, out of nowhere, randomly decide to turn on a light switch. We needed some light. So the behavior was we flicked the light switch. And what was the consequence? Light filled the room, right? And if you stop and think about it, how many thousands of times every day do you engage in an ABC moment? We all do it thousands of times a day. So do individuals who are on the autism spectrum, whether they are 11 months old or 111, right? So we look at these things, and when we're dealing with a challenging behavior, we specifically look at them and go, well, what happened before and what happened afterwards? We look at what the actual behavior is, and we try to figure out what the function of the behavior is, because the truth of the matter is that we get all concerned about the behavior. He's lining up cars. He's hitting his head on the kitchen floor. She's scratching herself. You know, I mean, there's millions of different things that an individual could engage in that we would term a challenging behavior, right? And we get all excited and nervous and anxious about the actual behavior. The truth of the matter is that we all have that scary moment at some time. Usually it's in public, like in a grocery store, when you realize, oh my gosh, they're engaging in the behavior and there's not a whole lot I can do, right? Because physically, once somebody's engaging in a behavior, what are your choices, right? Physically restrain them, that's never a fun choice, right? But when we learn the techniques of ABA, we learn, oh, I have some control over what happens before, and I have a whole lot of control about what happens as a consequence. And that if we monkey with the antecedent, which is what happens before, or we monkey with the consequence, we have a whole lot of power over that behavior. We really, really do. So when we're working with BCBAs, board certified behavior analysts, and other experts having to do with autism, a lot of times they will say, oh, we're going to put in place an antecedent modification. That means we look at what happens before and we do something different. We're going to change something about that little capsule of a moment before. I remember when there was one particular grocery store that I used to take Jem to, and every time we would go into this store, he loved this store. He was excited to go in. There was something that happened in the beginning of the store. They had squid. And he always would be like, Mommy, I want to see the squid. I want to see the squid. I want to see the squid. He didn't say it quite that, coherently, because we were working on language then. But, he would say, squid, squid, whatever. So anyway, he would be in the shopping cart and he'd be excited to be in the store. We would go to the squid. We would see the squid. Everything would be happy, wonderful, hearts, flowers, very exciting to see the squid. Then we would turn and go past the fish display, and every single time he would have a meltdown of epic proportions, epic proportions. And we went to our team and said, what are we going to do? They looked at the behavior, and we started, there's many different things you can do, but we started with antecedent modifications. Things that we could do to change the before. So we were trying to, determine, is it something to do with the squid that's creating a problem? There are so many things that we could do. We could come in the store and go a different direction and have the squid be the last thing that we saw. I could, look at all the things that were happening right before the challenging behavior and see if we could change it so that we didn't have the tantrum. If you begin to think about all behavior as communication, and you begin to see what are those moments before. It's hard at first, right? Because the behavior happens and you weren't paying attention to what was happening before. But eventually you get to be a detective and you notice the behavior and you go, all right, so what was happening right before? Did I put a demand on the child? Is there a way that I can change that demand? Can I, maybe they were doing a preferred activity and we can give them a countdown to leave that preferred activity to go to another. That would be an antecedent modification. Is it happening only when they're super duper tired? Is it happening every day at 1:15 if I don't feed them lunch at 12:30? We can change things in the environment so that we are less likely to have this challenging behavior. When you begin to think of things this way, you find the greatest power. Because you begin to feel like this is not random, this behavior, and I do have some ability to make it not happen or not happen when I want to. We all have had that experience of getting into a car with either one child or multiple children where you have no margin for error. You've got to be someplace, right? I have a friend who always tells the story of trying to put two babies into a car, trying to get to a job interview and putting on her pantyhose, and the child coming up and doing something and ripping the pantyhose. This is back in the day, right, when people wore pantyhose. And you stand there in that moment going, why now of all moments? Why the one time that I need everybody to get in the car? Why is this happening? It's not a coincidence. There were a whole lot of antecedents that happened beforehand. And if you really want to get in the car for the job interview, fully dressed, without Cheerios stuck to you, if you begin to understand antecedents for your kids, there's a way to do it. There is. You have to get there beforehand, right? You got to be prepared with a whole bunch of things. And maybe it's that you have a goodie bag for the kids that they don't get access to the rest of the time, that you go, hey, as soon as we get in the car, you get access to your goodie bag. Then suddenly everybody wants to get in the car. And everybody's happy to get in the car, and you have a minute to collect yourself and do whatever you need to do. Antecedent modification, it's a pretty powerful tool when we know how to use it and when we begin to look at behavior as communication. That's our jargon for the day. Now, we always like to ask you a question at the start of the day. Today's no different. And we'll be looking at your answers to our question of the day on our Facebook. But we want to know from you today, who are your autism role models? Who do you look up to? And by the way, I feel like there's two separate categories. Maybe there's three different categories here. For me anyway, there are people who are on the autism spectrum that I look up to, that they're heroes to me. And you're going to get to see interviews with a couple of those people a little bit later on in this hour. But there are also parents that I look up to that I go, oh my gosh, those are the trailblazers that for me are leading the way. Certainly, Temple Grandin's mother, Eustacia Cutler, is my role model in the field of autism. The way that she deals with things, the grace with which she handles all the things that have happened in her life. Oh man, I just hope to one day be 1/10 as together as Eustacia is, and be a lady of grace like Eustacia. I aspire to that greatly. And then there are people who work in the field of autism. Certainly, Dr. Doreen Gramsci is a superhero to me, and there are many others as well. People who give their hearts and their lives to helping individuals who are on the autism spectrum. It's an amazing, amazing thing to me. But I'm dying to know from you guys, who are your autism role models? Who are the people that you're looking up to that you go, you know, I want to be more like them. And I hope that there are more people like them. We long to hear from you. But we're going to see several of mine on the show today, and I'm very excited about that. Okay, we always have a topic of the week, and our topic this week, it's a very broad category. We're talking about it, autism community role models. And I put the word community in there because I do feel like this big, beautiful community contains a whole lot of people that are amazing. As I said, parents for sure, individuals who are on the autism spectrum, people who are working to help people on the spectrum. It's a big, beautiful community, and so we're going to be featuring a lot of those people. In fact, some of the different people that we have on the show today, we went week before last to the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference in Dallas, Texas. And we have to give a big shout out to the Future Horizon folks. It was a really amazing conference, and they very graciously gave us access to some of the amazing speakers that they had over a 2-day period speaking in Dallas, Texas. And we didn't get an opportunity to talk to Eustacia. We have to book a time to have Eustacia back on the show, but she also spoke at the conference. But some of the people that we spoke to, it's sort of, you know, for me, it's like the who's who of autism. It was our first time talking with Alexis Weinman, and my goodness, did she impress me. Oh, I'm so excited to show this interview with her. What an amazing young woman. She is the young lady who was in the 2013 Miss America pageant as Miss Montana, and she's on the autism spectrum. The first contestant who was openly on the autism spectrum. What a role model for our young women she is. We thoroughly enjoyed getting to chat with Alexis, and she's a very busy college student, but we're hoping that we'll have more opportunities to be talking with her whenever she's got a few minutes, because I was so impressed, you guys. We also had an opportunity to sit down with one of our regulars, but we'd never met her in person, Kara Kaczynski, the Pocket OT. What a delight she was, and we got a chance to meet her family, to meet her husband and her boys. So thrilled to show you the interview with her. We also, for the first time, got to meet in person with Dr. Jed Baker. He's the gentleman who wrote that book, Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. Ooh, what a powerhouse he is. What an amazing speaker he is. And we ran into Milo the robot in person, that we'd had him Skype before on the show, so we had an opportunity to talk with Milo. And, of course, saving the best for last, we had a couple of different opportunities to be with Temple Grandin, and I laughed because it was really enjoyable. Today, we're going to be showing you the sit-down interview where we asked some of the questions that you guys had sent in. So we're excited to be showing you that. I think later on in the week or next Tuesday, we will be unveiling the fun side of what we did. That we went to lunch with Temple, and that was wonderful, but we didn't have cameras on during the lunch. That, you know, that she asked that we not do that, and we thought that was more than fair, because, you know, everybody needs an opportunity to eat and not have a camera shoved up your nose. But I'm going to tell you about the lunch a little bit later on, because that's all my kid has talked about, how Temple Grandin went to bat for him and rearranged mommy. I got told, whew, I think Temple even got out the girlfriend finger, right? So I wish I had that on videotape for you, but I don't. But what we did videotape, we got the opportunity to take Temple to the airport, and so we had some fun in the car, a la Jerry Seinfeld driving with comedians to get coffee, whatever the name of that is. But with Temple Grandin and I, with Kelby and Jem in the back seat, you'll trust me, you will love that. But that's a little bit later on this week or next Tuesday. Amazing. And then we're going to catch up on a little bit of the autism news that we missed over the last 2 weeks of not being with you guys. And we want to catch up with you guys. You guys have sent in some questions. We missed you. Did you miss us? Write into us and tell us. Okay. So we also are thinking that it's a strong possibility that Janice Kern from Taka is going to be joining us this morning. Janice is, we're hoping that we have the opportunity to have her here on the show to talk about some of the amazing things going on with Taka, not the least of which is that their conference, which is happening on the West Coast weekend after next here in California. So hoping that Janice Kern is going to be joining us this morning. But in the meantime, we have so much other stuff. It's a power-packed show. And by the way, we have not been able to put out, my bad, we have not been able to put out a postcard about this week. Thinking that might happen later on today, but tomorrow, you will not believe the lineup of people that we have on the show tomorrow, and Thursday is going to be really exciting too. I'll talk more about that as the show progresses. Kelby, do you want to go to a break, or do you want to air one of these interviews? Okay, we're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back, and I'll set up some of these interviews for you and tell you about what we did in Texas. So first a break, and then more Autism Live after these messages. Stick with us. Mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today, and you know, honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite four-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it. You know, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
You know, get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Another parent wants to know, how do I find out that one thing that my kid is really good at?
Now, when they get older, they're going to kind of divide into two groups. You're going to have the kids that become verbal, and then you're going to have the kids that are nonverbal, got many more problems. Maybe they still have epilepsy or some other problem. And they kind of need different services. And the ones that get verbal, what we need to be doing with them is develop the area of strength. And that area of strength often will show up around 3rd or 4th grade, sometimes earlier. But my ability in art showed up when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and it was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. Otherwise, it would have just been endless horse heads. You know, Mother would say to me, "Why don't you draw a picture of a beach or something else?" You want to broaden it out. If the kid's fixated on trains, let's teach reading with trains, math with trains. Tap into that fixation, but develop the area of strength. Some kids it's going to be art. Other kids it's going to be mathematics. So you got a 3rd grader who's smart in math, and he wants a 6th grade math book. Give him the 6th grade math book. Don't bore him with the baby stuff. But that kid's going to have trouble with reading, because the common thing is the uneven skills. And then you have the kids that are the history buffs, and these kids are often really good at writing skills. You tend to have uneven skills, but tap into their fixations and use those to motivate, but broaden. If he likes trains, just watching them, well, we're going to take that interest in trains to do some math with it, or maybe read about the history of the railroad. You know, tap into that motivation. One of the things I really want to talk about is we got to stretch these kids. I'm not talking about physically stretching them, mentally stretching them to do new things. I'm seeing too many kids that haven't learned how to shop, how to order food at McDonald's. So you start out, let's say it's ordering food at McDonald's or at Burger King. So you take them up there and they watch you order it. And then eventually you go in when the store's not busy, and they have to go up and order it while you're sitting at the table watching, and then you coach them. And then eventually they can go in the restaurant themselves. I can remember I was scared to go to the lumber yard alone and buy lumber. And Mother made me go. And she knew I could do it. I had bought lumber with her many times. But there's a tendency to want to have somebody else there when they do it, and they've got to learn how to do things alone. And you gradually have got to kind of push it. You've got to stretch them. And I'm seeing too many kids not learning basic skills. Saw a 19-year-old honor student that actually knows how to drive that had never shopped in the grocery store all by herself. That is just ridiculous. You know, you've got to stretch them. You push too hard, they're going to be panic. And the other thing is no surprises. No surprises. I knew all about the ranch long before I went there. I'd talked to Ann. But if you don't stretch these kids, they don't grow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm very excited because we have on the phone and via Skype right now Janice Kern. I told you that there was a distinct possibility she was going to be with us. She's here and she's amazing. And she's coming to us from North Dakota. Now, if you've watched the show before, you know that Janice is the conference coordinator for a wonderful organization that we feature a lot on this show, TACA. And so we're thrilled to have Janice back to talk with us about some of the things going on with TACA, but in particular, the West Coast Conference that they have coming up on the 23rd and the 24th. So Janice, welcome back to Autism Live.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled to have you, and you look very fall. You've got fall colors behind you. Looking good. So tell us a little bit about this conference that's happening on the 23rd and the 24th. It's happening in Costa Mesa. Is that correct?
Correct, at the Hilton Orange County in Costa Mesa.
And so what kinds of things, because you guys do a great conference, tell us what's going to be going on.
Well, this will be our first national conference, so we've made it a little bigger and a little better for all of the attendees. So if you've been to a TACA conference in the past, this one will be a little bit different in that it is a lot larger, offering a lot more speakers and events.
And give us an idea of, first of all, people can still go to this, right? They can still register.
Yes, you should register online because it's cheaper than registering on site. Helps us plan for your arrival if you register online. If you are a family enrolled with a regional center, there's a good possibility that your registration fee could be covered. You would need to contact your case manager person for that registration information, but it's possible that you could have that fee covered for your registration, so you should check that out if your child is a client. The registration is online until the morning of the 22nd.
Okay. And so I have not had an opportunity to look and see all the different things. Give us an idea of some of the hit parade of who are some of the speakers that you're particularly interested in hearing.
Well, it would be easier to talk about myself and what I am looking forward to. I'm hoping that this is what everyone else is looking forward to as well. But personally, I'm looking forward to Dr. Daniel Amen. I have a couple of his books on my bookshelf, and I'm excited to hear him speak in person. I find his books very interesting, and there's a little bit of a celebrity impact involved with that. I'm just excited to say that I met him, and look forward to hearing what he has to say about brain SPECT imaging. Another speaker that we have coming as a keynote is Dr. Sue Sweeto. She's heading up our pandas track. We're devoting one track of speakers to pandas. It's an advanced track for parents who are looking for that higher level of learning specifically about pandas. So I'm looking forward to listening to her. I can't say that I'm an advanced or really I can't say that I'm an advanced parent, so I'm not sure if that track is meant for me, but I am looking forward to attending it.
Because since you brought up the tracks, there are different tracks that are meant for different things, because sometimes there are things that are a little overwhelming to me. I will admit that when we get into the science, I get a little left behind. But what are the different tracks that you have for this particular conference?
On Friday, we have an advanced medical track, a new parent track, and a law day track. So if your child has been diagnosed within the last year to 2 years, the new parent track is probably where you would like to start. Or if your child was diagnosed several years ago, but you were given no hope and no information, you just didn't come across the right people on your journey yet, and now you're realizing that there's more that can be done, that track is for you too. The Law Day track is devoted to IEP information, legal information, assessments, making the most out of those things. That's the Law Day track. And the Advanced Medical track is for your tougher kids medically. We'll be talking about seizures, mitochondrial dysfunction, and those other things that are above apparently your head and mine, Janet.
Yeah, I usually need to sit there with the dictionary open and the internet open and be Googling things. And I have said before, if somebody shows me one more slide of a peptide of casein or, I can't go there. I get to a point. But if that makes it sound like you shouldn't go to a conference, we need to back up for a second, because TACA conferences are more fun than any other autism conference where you're going to get good content out there. You guys are heavy on the fun. Talk to us a little bit about some of the fun that will happen there, Janice.
Well, there's a little bit of fun, but we always want to mix it in with education and trying to help parents as much as possible. So we hope that there might be a couple of times where all the parents who are attending are having a really good time, but they're leaving with more information than they came with, and they're not really, it's kind of like when your kids are in school, we hope that there's a little bit of learning associated with all of the fun that they're having while they're there too. And that's what we're trying to do at the TACA conference. One of the things that for people like you and I that make learning a little easier is that we provide every attendee with a conference workbook. So when you're sitting there and everything is over your head, all the slides are in this conference workbook, and you can take your own notes and take that workbook home with you as an ongoing resource long after the conference is over. The purpose of the TACA conference is to get you going, but not to leave you hanging. So after the conference is over, we want to figure out a way to continue to support you, whether it's through a different TACA program, utilizing your conference workbook at home, or other ways.
And Janice, I mean, I know the value of this kind of a conference. It goes far beyond the 2 days. I mean, what people will learn and what they will gain, and the connectivity of it all, to be there and see that there are people who are going through the same thing. It's so uplifting. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've heard from people who've come to past conferences, what they've gained from it, what that's meant for them in the rest of the year.
The best comment I've heard as feedback that has stuck with me is that someone referred to it as a game changer. Attending this conference is a game changer. And that's how I feel about it personally. It really boosts you, it energizes you, it inspires you, and all of the information to take home in your brain to help your own child. You can get so much from the internet, you can get so much from, all kinds of resources, but attending a conference in person and networking with other parents who are like you, who really want to make a difference in their child's health, it's irreplaceable. It's a great experience if you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that there is something about being there. I was saying before that we started this show to be a way for people to get access to things at conferences that you can't get to. But honestly, I think everybody needs to find the time and the way to get to things like this. This is a perfect example of something that you could put on your to-do list and say, okay, this is the one that I'm going to go to because it will uplift you. I think that it would be impossible to leave and not feel like your batteries were refreshed. And there is a lot of science that's there, and that's important. And I never mean to poo-poo the science, because we all want to be doing things that are science-based and effective, and to understand why they're effective. But I do think that TACA finds the right mix of not overwhelming you with it and giving you opportunities to get to know other people. Whenever you go to another conference that isn't TACA sponsored, but TACA is there, you always recognize the TACA people because they are the people who are having the most fun. Right? I mean, it's the truth. And so imagine, when they're doing the conference, it's pretty amazing. Blow your mind, kind of amazing. So Janice, what's the website to go to get the most information and to be able to register?
TACAconferences.com.
Okay. I know I saw you pause, that you were thinking about it, like which.
I am pausing because I want to make sure I send you to the right one.
Well, and let's also.
I kind of live on that website, but now when you ask me.
But let's also say, that you can also always go to tacanow.org. And when you go to tacanow.org, you will be treated to, I think, the most comprehensive website on autism that exists. There's so much there, including information about the conference as well, and I'm sure that you can find a link that gets you to the registration there as well. And you'll find a whole host of other information. It really is amazing how much information is on the TACA Now website. So Janice, you're going to be there for the conference on the 23rd and 24th. So if people go, they have an opportunity to meet you. And you mentioned two of the people who are speaking that you're really excited about. Anybody else that you particularly are like, oh, okay, I'm going to get to meet them. This is going to be thrilling.
There are a few. Because of the age of my son, he just turned 14. I'm interested in job skills and life skills. That's a topic. I'm also interested in the siblings panel. We have some really awesome siblings that are taking part in that. And it's a perspective that I appreciate hearing because I have 3 other children who are not affected by autism, but obviously they're very affected by autism because we're living with autism because of our Charlie who's diagnosed. So I'm excited about that siblings panel. The one event that I'm most excited about, we have a few extra events that are included with your registration. One of those is the TACA Coffee Talk. TACA Coffee Talks are held across the country, not every day, but several times a month. You will find quite a few coffee talks across the country. And this one at the conference, we're really beefing it up, and we've got 24 tables, each with its own professional and autism expert. moderated by a TACA coordinator, each with its own topic. The attendee can pick whatever table they want, and then we get up and rotate after about 40 minutes of roundtable discussion. So you can pick up to 3 topics. And it's all, it's not quite one-on-one, but it's really up close and personal information with whatever speaker you want. And we have 24 different topics to choose from. I'm really excited. One thing we did to that, just to add to the excitement, was the first 30 people to come in the door for that evening coffee talk get a free TACA coffee mug.
Oh, very nice. Very exciting. Truly remarkable. And we should mention that, for those of you, because you're one of the coordinators for one of the local chapters in North Dakota. And a lot of times I think people don't know that there might be a TACA close to them. And if there isn't a TACA close to them, a TACA chapter, that there is the potential to start one. When you were you integral in starting the North Dakota chapter, or did you just find it and it was already happening?
I helped to start the chapter. A friend and I, we were going to the TACA website all the time because at the time it was the only place we could find really good diet information, and at that time it was hard to find information on the GFCF diet.
Yeah.
And one day, while on the website, we saw that TACA wanted to expand and add chapters across the country. And so she and I applied together, my friend Jolene and I, and how could they say no? And so we've had a TACA chapter here in North Dakota since 2008.
And honestly, folks, if you are feeling like you don't have enough of a local network, get involved if there's already a TACA in your area, or think about getting involved and starting a TACA in your area, because Janice, what has TACA been able to do for you?
Oh, that will probably move me to tears. It was the first place
It's okay.
It was the first place that I really found information combined with hope, and that's what I like the best. It's not just hope. It's not just the great stories of kids who drastically improve, and we do have those. It's also information to get your child the best outcome possible. I love the combination.
Well, Janice, you guys have a really great thing going on, and hopefully there will be people who are watching this today who will say, you know what, that's what I've been looking for. I want to know, how can I get involved? How can I make this happen in my neck of the woods? And one of the first things that they can think about doing is get to this conference. As you mentioned, for those of you who have regional centers, and I know that several states do have regional centers, there's a possibility that that it will be paid for you. And they count that as, what is it called, Janice? Is it parent enrichment, parent education? What do we ask for when we go to the regional center?
What would be your key word? It is in its own category. I guess we've only been encouraging people to contact their case coordinator.
Okay. And they'll know, your case coordinator will, I think it's called parent enrichment, or it's parent education, or they know what category it's in, and they have paid for it for other people. So don't let them say, oh no, we never pay for conferences. That's not the truth. Right. Sometimes things get a little slippery. People go, oh, I didn't know about that. But you know about it now, so ask about it. And again, they can go to the TACAnow.org, but what is the other website that you told us, Janice?
TACA conferences.
TACAconferences.org?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Janice, we so appreciate you, and I hope that I get an opportunity to see you. I'm hoping to see if I can get there on the 24th. Okay. And I should ask, so for people who are attending, can they attend just one day, or do they really need to come both days?
Well, I'd like you to come for both days, but you can attend one day. The thing to keep in mind is that your lunch is included with whatever registration you choose. The conference workbook is included with whatever registration you choose. So you don't get less if you only come for one day with these extra things. And no matter which day you register for, you can still attend the Friday evening events. So let's say you're arriving Friday late in the day, and you only have registered for Saturday. You can still attend the Friday evening coffee talk, which most people I think are really going to like that event.
Yeah.
So it's included with whichever registration you choose.
All right. Well, amazing conference. Oh, and briefly, you know, Taka has a fundraiser coming up, Ante Up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I really can't tell you too much about it because I've been so involved with this conference. But Ante Up is a great big fundraiser that Taka hosts every year. And it's a lot of fun with a little bit of card playing, some poker going on, auction items. And there's a lot of money made for Taka in one evening of fun. There are a lot of big donors who come and want to support Taka, and they can do it all that night. It's a lot of fun.
And do we know what the date is for that?
Do we?
I don't. Do you?
I want to know. Just a second.
Okay.
It's November.
November. I'm taking notes.
November.
And because Lisa will kill us.
Here's the problem, Shannon. I'm not attending Ante Up, and I'm going to make Lisa Ackerman invite me because that would have made it possible for me to know the date of this right off the top of my head.
All right. Well, we're going to find it. But it's a really wonderful event, but it happens here in Southern California. So it is one of those things that Kelby's got it November 7th?
It is November 7th.
All right. All right. And Dana Point? All right, November 7th
Yes.
in Dana Point. All right, we'll talk about that more as it comes up. But the conference is happening on the 23rd and the 24th of October, so that's just coming up weekend after next. So Janice, I hope to meet you in person then. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Really amazing woman, Janice Kern, and an amazing conference, Taka. And first national conference that they're doing. I didn't even know that. So exciting. You want to go and get some good information, meet wonderful people that you will be friends with for the rest of your life. That's the conference to go to. All right, we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, I'm going to be telling you about some of these interviews that we're going to be sharing. So stick with us.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain?
If help seemed out of reach?
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and ensures that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, you know, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope. One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with Taka the most is hope. To me, that's what Taka means. Taka means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's going to do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're going to do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3-week of depression and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we going to do. And then we found Taka, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction and there was hope and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's going to be okay and we're going to be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without Taka.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found Taka. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon. And we couldn't be more pleased, and without Taka, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. Taka is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At Taka?
At Taka.
At Taka,
we are families with autism helping.
Helping.
Helping families. Helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old, and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College, and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone, and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
Welcome back. Taka, a really amazing organization, and Lisa Ackerman, who is the founder of Taka, does a regular segment here on the show. She's been really busy and she's a new grandma, so we haven't had the opportunity to do it for a couple of months, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to get her back in to do some more of those. And you also have the ability to watch, Lisa did a series of videos with us that are pretty amazing. We have on our playlist, I can't talk today. There's a whole playlist that is just the segments that Lisa has done with us. They're pretty fascinating, and especially if you're wanting a perspective that includes what to do about biomedical, man, you're not going to get that anyplace better than Taka, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. I should say that after every sentence I say here, in my opinion. In any case, we had said to you that we were going to show some of the interviews that we did at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference in Dallas, Texas. And the first one that I'm so excited to show you, and thank you to Kelby for all your fabulous work getting these together very quickly for us. Alexis Weinman, Miss America contestant in 2013. She was Miss Montana. What an articulate, well-spoken, polite, intelligent, fabulous, poised young woman she is. We're talking about role models this week. For those of you who have young ladies who are on the autism spectrum, I can think of no finer role model. She's so down to earth. You know, makeup was not her thing. She's not what I typically think of, you know, beauty pageant girl at all. She was tomboy, but man, she saw an opportunity and she decided to delve into the pageant world, and she changed everything. Was voted the America Choice for that year. America resoundingly gave her their vote. That says something great. So we sat down with her. You'll notice that we're in the choir room of a church, so there's robes in the background. It was kind of a cool space to be in. But here is our interview with Alexis Weinman.
I am Alexis Weinman at the Future Horizons Super Conference in Dallas, Texas. It helped me in a way because it was a format that I was not used to. Like, I had never curled my hair before. I've never worn heels. I didn't know what foundation was. And it was just, it was a very, like, it helped me more in a business sense. Like, I know how to present myself in front of people now. That's something my mom drilled into my head. I have trouble sometimes with it. Like, you introduced yourself to me downstairs, and so I immediately, like, and I've heard of you before, so I was like, I know this person, I can make eye contact with this person. And if I'm talking to someone I don't know, or if I'm listening to someone give a speech, most of the time my head will be down. I don't look at people in the eye, but if it's someone I know I need to make eye contact with, I make eye contact. But my mom growing up, she, especially after the diagnosis, she would always like grab my hand if I was like, you know, looking everywhere else but her, and she'd like say, look me in the eye. And so she wouldn't let go of my hand until I looked her in the eye. I do feel like I have to play poet because, you know, sometimes there'll be jokes I don't understand, but I'll laugh at anyway. There will be situations that I'm not comfortable with, but I'm gonna have to play along anyway. And I think I just found out, like, I'm just a tremendously amazing liar. Like, I can pretend like I'm uncomfortable with something when in actuality I am screaming inside, or I know the moment I get back to my dorm room I'm going to start screaming or having a meltdown or something like that. But I also know that there is a time and a place because there isn't any safe rooms available in neurotypical society. Like, we have to make our own. And, you know, on a college campus, there's not many places you can go and scream without attracting attention. The way I explain it to people is, you know, people's brains are like hamster wheels. Eventually, the hamster's got to take a break. Autistic brains aren't like that. They just keep going and going and going. So we can't stop thinking about things. There's like, that's why a lot of kids with autism have sleep problems, because they can't fall asleep because they have too much on their brain. They can't sleep because they're thinking too much. And I think just the walking in circles, there's no thought to a circle. Like, it's just, like, so I'll just plug in my earphones so I can't hear anything else except whatever white noise I'm listening to, and I'll just walk in a circle. I think it's just like we are just as prevalent as men with autism. There might not be as many as there are boys, but we are still part of this movement. We're still part of this community, and we just got to remind people that, hey, you know, we're here too. You know, don't forget about us. One thing I've learned is that, first off, I'm not the only person who is speaking from their own perspective. Like, I feel like I go to some of these conferences and it's a bunch of doctors and a bunch of parents who want to talk and get to know what autism is about, but there's not a lot of people on the spectrum talking about it. And so I come to these and I see Temple Grandin, who's one of the biggest faces in the autism community, actually get up and talk about what helped her and what we need to do in order to get our kids out of society and not in our parents' basements. And so it's just kind of reaffirming, like, I'm not the only one. Thank you. Because I'd go to these and I would be the only one. I'd be next to a bunch of doctors and talking about worlds I have not even seen before, let alone pronounce. And I'm just sitting here like, I did a pageant once. So it's good to know, like, I'm speaking from a perspective of not necessarily overcoming, but learning to live with this, because I feel like not a lot of people come out and say what it's like to live on the autism spectrum. A lot of people talk about the struggles and everything like that, but they don't talk about, you know, what they've done to make their lives better while living on the spectrum.
Jack Riley.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. Exciting. I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
So Jack Riley, how old are you?
6.
Are you in first grade?
No, it's going to be first grade though.
So what are you in now?
I'm doing 0th grade.
You're in. What do you call 0th grade?
Kindergarten.
The A word.
I think that word was far worse than we ever expected.
Yeah, I remember I kicked the garbage can when we were outside. My foot hurt. I remember that. And, that wasn't a very good day.
Say,
Yeah, there we go. Good job.
green or orange?
What is it? Let's race.
What's your dad's name?
Like,
It's,
hippo
I guess it's a pretty good example of what it could look like. I mean, there's struggles for all kids, but the fact that they were, Cheryl and Mike were so great, you know, taking in our parent training and utilizing the tools that we gave them and being on board with us and being consistent. I feel like consistency is so important because sometimes I know when parents come home, it's just easier for them to just give the child whatever it is that they need because they've had therapy all day. But consistency, I feel, is so important, and that's, you know, how you get over, you know, their behaviors, their difficulties, and yeah. So yeah, consistency is key, and it's obviously worked for them.
Like that, okay? Ready? You can do it. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Good job!
Good job, Jack.
We adore him, so whether you do the right thing because of that, you're doing something because of it.
I think I saw it.
Coincidentally, some of it's right.
When we first, you know, you hear autism, and of course I did all the online research to scare you to pieces, and you know, one of the things that probably hit me the hardest was that he's not supposed to be a kid who likes affection. He's not supposed to be a kid who's going to put out affection. And of course that's not true, but you know, what did we know at the time? So I think then, and it's in both of our nature that we thought we could love it out of him, which is probably one of the best things that we ever did.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm going to marry somebody.
Yeah.
Eloise.
Eloise? You've got a lot of contenders, though, for who you might
Yes,
marry.
I do.
Who else might you marry?
She's the only one I'm going to marry.
Oh, yeah?
I hope.
And as I said many years ago, I want him to date. I think that forms you. It informs everything in your life. You know, getting your heart broken, breaking a heart, confidence, insecurity, everything's informed by dating. And I really want him to do that. And to me, that's a typical behavior.
Just that, I don't know, I mean, he's just such a cool kid. It's just, we are amazed every day at some of the stuff that he says and does, and feel very, I guess, honored, privileged to be his parents.
Well, what if Mommy asks you to eat broccoli? What will you do?
I would eat it, but I don't like it.
Okay.
It just tastes like, because I don't like eating trees, and that looks like a tree.
That's true. You don't like eating trees?
It looks like a small tree, like this big a tree.
Yeah.
That's one thing that autism has done for us. If I just don't know that if you don't go through this, that you, I mean, I was never someone who lived in the present very well. I tend to look to the future a lot, always planning what's next, and boy, he helps me to live in the present because you just have to. You have to appreciate every little thing.
A part of me wants him to forget that he ever even had therapy, just to grow up and make memories, make friends, and yeah, be successful in life.
Perfect. Now pull the other bunny in. You did it. Design is escape.
It's not a death sentence. A lot of joy and growth, and when you find the fun, it's probably bigger than it ever would have been with a typical kid because you work so hard for it. And that's about it, I think.
Can you take this off?
Makeup.
Temperamental star.
Nailed it.
I tell you, we're talking about role models this week, and there are no finer role models than this family that was a part of the A Word. If you're looking for parents to show you the way, if you're looking to see a child and how they have done through this process, this is a family that you can look to. I want to remind you that this entire series is available, and you can drop in at any point on the series. It's all available to you free. They have their very own YouTube channel, and they also have a Facebook page where the family continues to interact. And so if you have questions about something that you want to ask the family, go to their Facebook page, write in on the A Word. Amazing, amazing family. Thrilled at the progress that they saw, and thrilled for them that they worked hard for it, y'all. They, amazing. So we'll say that. There are families, of course, who work really hard, who don't see as much progress as Jack Riley saw, but that does not belittle the fact that this family worked really hard to get to that progress, and it was not easy. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to touch in on some of the things that you guys have written. There are a lot of questions that you guys wrote in the last week that we're going to be saving for Dr. Doreen Grandpichet tomorrow during Ask Dr. Doreen, but there were a couple of things in particular. There was a question that came up last week when we were doing the show with Dr. Doreen, somebody who wrote in and talked about the fear of eloping, and sometimes that there are places that they will go, and the mom was saying, I have some fears about whether the people on our team are taking it seriously enough, that there's the potential for eloping. And I chimed in and said, hey, because Dr. Grandpichet answered a lot of the question and lined up, here's exactly what you can do, and here's how this will go. And I said, okay, but from the paranoid mom perspective, because that would be moi, here's what I would be concerned about, and talked about some of my fears from last year. And that mom wrote in and said, Shannon, you are on point as usual. Thank you. And you said, you get it. Yes, I do. And you also said thank you to the doctor, and I will share that with her. But you wrote in and said that the problem is that they are not giving you any advance notice for those outings except a call the day of. And I just wanted to say to you that that is a tactic that a school will do to try to circumvent you putting any demands on beforehand. You have many different things in your arsenal that you can do about that. Perhaps the most definitive is that the next time you have an IEP is to get it written in that there is a protocol before an outing that must be followed, and so you must have 48 hours notice. You can absolutely ask for that to be written in under your special accommodations page. What I have done in the past without getting it written into the IEP is that I have just sent them a letter and said, in the future, I need to get 48 hours notice because I need to mentally prepare my child. We all know, we talked about antecedent modifications earlier in the show today. We all know that if, for anyone, if we let them know what's happening, it is a way that we reduce anxiety. It's an antecedent modification that works. Think about it. If you're driving a car and you don't know where you're going, how much anxiety do you end up feeling in the car when you're constantly having to wait for the other person to say, okay, take a left here. Oh my gosh, I'm not even in the right lane, right? We feel that driving, and we have the ability to go, no, I'm not going to do that, right? And our kids, we can take on an outing, don't have that ability. So I write a letter to the school and say, like me, I know you want to set my child up for success, and I know my child, and the best way to set him up for success is if we tell him in advance of going on the outing that he's going on the outing and who's going to be in charge. So I'm going to need to have all of that in writing 48 hours before. If that's not possible, we'll have to look at whether or not I need to rescind my permission for going on outings, right? We never want to be in a position where we're having our child miss an educational opportunity because the school isn't getting it together. But if safety is our first priority and you're concerned about the safety, we need to get that in place. And you can ask for that. If they don't respond, get it written into the IEP, and you can always ask for an emergency IEP meeting. If sometimes it comes down to power plays, you know what I'm saying? And just let them know that it's not going to be a power play, but here's the protocol. Here's what it's going to be. A lot of questions that you guys have written in, and of course, questions asking, are you better? I'm getting there. I am absolutely for sure getting there. And I also want to take just a second to talk about, somebody said, welcome back, Shannon. Hope you're feeling better. Thank you so much for another informative and compassionate show. Your mentioning of Jed Baker and anxiety came at the perfect time. Bad mom alert. Got angry at my teen for his anxiety. And then there's a sad face. He had agreed to attend the first meeting of a club, an opportunity to socialize. He said he was afraid to see one student, a past bully, but no incidents have happened this year. I'm ashamed at my anger dealing with the most adorable and agreeable kid. Learning from you. Well, we're going to talk in a second. And you said bad day equals good data. Need to get a grip and figure out strategies for how to help him work through anxiety. Thanks for being there for us and for sharing your parenting experiences and bravery for advocating for your child. Love watching Jem pass out flyers while you were interviewing Ari Greenberg in that one at the Autism Speaks walk. He's in the background handing out flyers. I know, I love it too. And look forward to hearing more about the conference. You are amazing. You are amazing too. And I just want to say, okay, you want the bad mom alert? Oh, if there had only been cameras in my house last night. Let's just say Mother of the Year, not happening in this decade for moi. Not for the decade. All weekend long, Jem had a science project that was due today. And I am thankful that we are at the point where he did all of the research. He, did everything. I didn't have to, I learned nothing about what the actual thing was. He had to make a board game that was educational, having to do with cells and something like, I think, called organelles. So he did all the research, got all these pictures, had all these definitions. He came up with all the rules of the game. All I had to do was cut things and tape them to the Monopoly board that we remade. I'll have to post a picture of what this thing looked like. Like any good participating mother, I had glue and tape stuck in my hair last night, and we were rehearsing with him for him to do his presentation about the board game, and I lost it entirely and began yelling. The bad mother alert. And I'm sure, looking back on it, that he was having anxiety about the whole thing, and he was tired, and but he didn't want to do it, and I completely lost it and had to leave the room because I just was like, I am done. Because he made a statement. He said, I don't really want to do this. and I said, well, heaven forbid that you should have to do something that you don't want to do. I just have been taping for 2 days. But heaven forbid, we would never want to have you do something that you don't want to do. Yeah, no. Hey, we do the best we can on the days that we can. And then we take notice and go, oh, okay, what antecedent modification might I have done for myself so that I didn't get to the point where I threw a tantrum? So that's what my whole being was thinking about this morning, about how when mommy has been sick, mommy cannot spend that much time taping because mommy gets in a bad place. So anyway, I'm learning, we're all learning, we do the best that we can. And I went upstairs last night and, you know, it's not enough to apologize. And I always say that to my son, but it's a start, right? It's important to apologize when we have been, when our behavior has not been what it should be. And I went upstairs and I had a conversation with him and I said, hey, I'm really sorry. It's not appropriate for me to yell ever. And I said, I want to talk about what happened and what I was feeling, why I decided to yell, and what I could have done better, how I could have said to you, hey, I'm really frustrated that I've spent time helping you and now you don't want to do it. So we had that whole conversation, but I did apologize. And then we just try to do better than we did before. Okay, so a bunch of other questions that you guys have written in, a bunch of questions from teachers, which I absolutely love, which we're going to address with Dr. Granpeche tomorrow. But since you brought up Dr. Jed Baker, we got to spend more time with Dr. Jed Baker last week and week before last in Texas, because he was also at the Future Horizons conference. And can I just tell you, I was super duper impressed with him. Kelby will tell you, I'm not lying. At one point in this interview, I had asked him a question, he answered it, and I stopped everything and I said, can I just say that I love you? You know, I said that because I just really think he's kind of amazing. And the way he puts things, it's so very concise and he's so compassionate. My son was there in the room and driving me a little buggy. And watching how compassionate he was towards my son, I know he's not just talking a talk, he also walks it. So we want to share this wonderful interview with you, and I do want to encourage all of you to check out his books, the new book, which is Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. I've read it, and it's really an amazing book, and it's out now. It was launched while we were at the Future Horizons conference because it's from Future Horizons. He's also got a book, No More Meltdowns. In fact, Future Horizons has a package. I don't know if they just sell them at their conferences, but they have a Jed Baker package. I drooled all over it. I already have many pieces of it, so I decided not to get the package. But if you don't have Jed Baker on your bookshelf, I would consider getting the package. So let's take a look at the conversation that we had, Jed Baker, at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference recently in Dallas, Texas.
Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Jed Baker. I'm here at the Future Horizons Super Conference here in Dallas, and excited to get a chance to talk to Shannon about some of my work to help some of our folks on the spectrum. It's a book really about dealing with meltdowns in the moment, how to sort of deal with crises, but maybe more importantly, how to prevent those moments of frustration and sometimes anxiety and outburst by understanding very carefully what the triggers are to some of those challenging behaviors. Crisis management is really about the art of distraction in many ways, that when someone is what we call hijacked, their limbic system takes over the rest of their brain, their fight, flight, freeze response kicks in, they're not logical. You can't talk to them anymore, right? When logic is gone, we think about how do we get your mind off this problem in the moment just so we can calm down. And then when that forebrain, the logic brain, comes back, then we can figure out how to solve the problem. But in that moment, it may, you know, not lead to anything fruitful to just continue in logical debate, and you can't do this, or threat of punishment, or even promise of reward. If logic is gone, we have to get your mind off of it. So I lay out in the No More Meltdowns book 7 very common categories of triggers. And there might be 7,000, but these are the broad categories that I see over and over again. So one of them is demanding tasks. So that could be classwork, homework, tying your shoes. It could be doing a new task that you've never done, a chore at home, or going to a new place that you're not sure what's going to happen, right? And so when you have demanding tasks, we think about how do we simplify those tasks? How do we, if there's someone who's really fearful of doing something, a lot of schoolwork opposition is really about anxiety, fear of looking stupid, fear of making a mistake. And so we don't force someone to comply with work. When you're afraid of doing work, we gradually expose you to it. Say, don't do it, just watch. But don't do it, just watch. Now they watch. Well, now that you saw how to do it, do you want to do the first part, but don't do the others? And so a lot of those kids who would have been oppositional become much more cooperative if we don't force compliance, but we let them see the map of the territory ahead of time. We make it comprehensible by using visual support so they could see how to do it. We model it ahead of time. We use what we call the 80-20 rule. Give them 80% of what they can do easily before the 20% that's difficult. So if we give people successful experiences with work in the first couple of minutes, they're more willing to try something challenging because now they have confidence. Okay? And then we have to teach them skills. Not only to modify the work, we have to teach them that it's okay to ask for help. That's how you get smarter. It's okay to ask for a break and then come back. That all of that is preferable to running under your desk or running out of the school building. A colleague of mine, Mark Durand, had written a book called Optimistic Parenting, and he was looking at the research that he did, longitudinal studies, tracking kids on the spectrum from the ages of 3 to 6 years old, and looking at what was the best predictor of how sort of out of control or aggressive their behavior, some of which was anxiety related, what was the best predictor of that kind of behavior in the home. He thought the best predictor would be if they were really aggressive at 3, they'd be aggressive at 6, not the best predictor. So then he thought, well, it might be the less language capability they have, the more frustrated they would be, because they, you know. But that wasn't the best predictor. Best predictor was hope, parental optimism versus pessimism. Because when parents had hope, when teachers have hope, they continue to do the things that eventually will get them in the direction they want to go. Not always making a 180-degree cure, but progress. That is the best predictor. When we give up hope, when we feel overwhelmed, when we all can suffer from learned helplessness, giving up, feeling like it's too much, then we don't progress anymore. So the first key step is for all of us to know that things in fact can and do get better. Not always 100% better, but we chip away at things over time. And sometimes it takes 6 months to even a year to overcome a certain kind of anxiety.
Welcome back. That was Jed Baker, Dr. Jed Baker. Just amazing. We had a fascinating time talking with him. He's such a wealth of knowledge. And I want to tell you again that his book, Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens, is available now. I know that you can get it on the Future Horizons website, which is fhautism.com, I believe. It might be under .org. And I know that you could pre-order it on Amazon until, but he was saying that there was some sort of an issue. You were supposed to be able to pre-order it, and then it was supposed to be available. I don't know if it is in fact yet, but I know that you can absolutely get it on the Future Horizon website. And somebody had written in and said that you're so enjoying when we're featuring books, and we want to do more of that and more of these amazing authors. In fact, we have somebody that's coming up in just a couple of weeks that's already booked for a great new book from a parent. But you had mentioned that there is an opportunity if you're ordering these books from Amazon, that if you sign up for Amazon Smile, that a portion of the sale will go automatically to Autism Care and Treatment Today. So what a great opportunity. You were saying maybe perhaps there should be a link that somebody could go in and order the book. I'm going to check into that to see, and you had said that you'd be willing to help. I'll get back to you on that because I think that's a great idea, that we should have a way, whether it's from our website or when we link it under the description. Normally I give you the Amazon link or I give you the Future Horizon link so that you can just immediately go and push on it to go to the book. But what a great thing if we were raising money at the same time. I think that's a fabulous idea. But definitely check out Dr. Jed Baker's books. Again, there are other ones as well, including No More Meltdowns, and there's even an app, No More Meltdowns. Fascinating, great guy, very plain spoken, thoroughly enjoy getting to spend some time with him. And I know he just brought the house down at that Future Horizons conference. The people that were there, and what a great mix of people that were there. There were a lot of parents, but there were a lot of teachers too. I have to say how much hope that gave me, that so many teachers were there, and Future Horizons was offering continuing education credits for teachers that were there. I just thought it was, and what a wonderful group of people the Future Horizons folks are. If you have not yet met Tubble Grandin, I'm telling you, you got to get to one of these Future Horizon conferences. For that reason only, you have to go to the conference, but then while you're there, there's a wonderful opportunity to see other speakers like Dr. Jed Baker, and you've got to go to their bookstore. Take your credit card and get ready. Fasten your seatbelt because you're going to want to buy everything there. Just saying. Okay, so we also had the opportunity, as I mentioned while we were in Texas, to interview Kara Kaczynski. She is the Pocket OT. What a wonderful mom she is. I got to meet both of her boys and her husband. What a lovely woman. And she's so much fun, has such an enthusiasm for this subject matter. And I will tell you that we had planned to interview her on a different day, and then we switched it up for her. We got there, she was there a day early, and we coerced her into doing a wonderful interview, and she did a wonderful interview with no notice whatsoever. So here is our interview with the Pocket OT, Kara Kaczynski.
Hi, I'm Kara Kaczynski, the Pocket Occupational Therapist, and we're here in Dallas, Texas at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference. So the book is the Special Needs School Survival Guide, and it's everything you wanted to know about school. It is, okay, so it starts out with just different diagnoses that you might see, and then I explain them in clear terms, no technical jargon, and then each little diagnosis area has about, I don't know, 50 to 100 activities that you can do at home or at school or cheaply and effectively. So it's just full of information that you can use right now. And the cool thing about it is at the end of every chapter are resources that you can use and access in the internet from a computer. And it's not just for kids with any diagnoses either. It's for kids that are just having trouble with handwriting or with dressing in school or transitions too. Well, both of my kids are on the autism spectrum, so it's important to me that when I learn something for other people, you know, as I research it for occupational therapy, I want to try it at home. So then I take what works and I put it in a book, and what doesn't work, it's thrown out the window. And the other thing is I've just started to research for webinars, because our kids, as you know, if our kids are aging, so they start out these cute little babies with autism, and now they're getting to be teenagers and young adults, and we need help with modifying the environment for them, transition planning, and especially for IEP goal writing, for functional things that they can work on, not just handwriting, but then going beyond into the transition to young adulthood. Yeah, the misnomer at this point in the school systems is that we just do handwriting. So we are actually not handwriting teachers. We can modify or help rectify a grip that's inefficient. So if a child doesn't have that nice, pretty little tripod grasp, we can help to get that. However, when the kid's in 2nd or 3rd grade, then we look at efficiency. So if the grasp is efficient, if it's a quadrupod grasp, or if it's some kind of funky grasp, and the child can write efficiently, then we leave it alone. But if not, then we go to electronic accommodations. So OTs then can look at keyboarding and what kinds of keyboards would fit the student best. Also sensory processing, as the kids get older, it looks different. So we can look at sensory processing as it relates to function in the school. And then we also can look at behavior and transition planning. Other things we can do is work on seating. So if the child's having trouble sitting still in the classroom, we can modify that too. So not just handwriting, not just sensory, but we look at behavior, transitions, so anything that affects that student's school day. Right, so that's a really good question, because sensory processing disorder did not make it into the last DSM, which is the way that medical professionals classify disorders. So it did make it into the classification under autism, but sensory processing disorder is very confusing. and a lot of therapists treat it differently. So the general overview is that sensory processing is either a heightened response to stimuli in the environment or a too low, which is hypo, response. So if the student perceives every noise around them is equally as important, or every feeling, so I'm sitting here, I can feel the chair, my sweater, the noise around me, then it's hard to concentrate and focus in the classroom on what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So we would use something, maybe a suggestion could be a weighted lap pad or some kind of fidget tool for the student to fidget with, or we can even look at special positioning in the classroom, so preferred seating. Then with sensory, transitions can be hard because any unexpected bump in the classroom or in line can set the child off into a fight or flight, which is when they really have a tantrum and freak out. So when they're in a fight or flight mode, they may fly off the handle for no apparent reason, maybe just being bumped by another student. So it's our job to be detectives and to figure out why the student is having that meltdown. So my CDs were created for my own kids my son in kindergarten didn't like the fire drills. So he was afraid to even step foot into the classroom because the fire alarm may sound. Of course, the school's not going to say, oh, let's just set off the fire alarm for your son, Bob. So we thought, where can we get a fire alarm? So we went into a recording studio and picked a whole plethora of sounds that you couldn't control, fireworks, thunder, sirens, and we put them on a CD, and I wrote nursery rhymes, changing the words to blender, blender, it's okay, or different little, Mary had a little lamb is, something to do with thunder. So they're kind of fun, and that way the student can control the volume of the sound. It's not a listening therapy, there's no headphones involved. It's just a fun way to control sounds that you normally couldn't control. So they're for sale at my website, thepocketot.com.
What I love about Kara Kaczynski is that she gets it from an experiential point of view, that we have lots of fabulous OTs that are out there that are so helpful to our kids and help us to be able to work with things in a way that is really substantive to our kids. But there are also a lot of OTs that don't have children and don't have any children on the autism spectrum, so they're coming at it from a point of view that is, I don't even know. I just remember there was one OT very early on with Jem that said to us, there was a very popular thing for a while that was astronaut training, which reminds me we have that to get to too, where they would take kids and they would spin them on these little turntables. And they found that for some kids, it did something to their inner ear and they spoke better afterwards. And my son was one of those kids. So we were doing astronaut training for a while and it was, it helped him. It really did. And at one point, one of the OTs said to me, very young, right out of college, and she was like, well, we find that hanging him upside down and spinning is something that's really good for him. So if you could make that a priority at home. I went home and I said to my husband, he's like, how did things go today? And I said, well, the OT thinks that Jem is a bat. We need to hang him upside down and spin him for 10 minutes out of every hour, which, I get it. Like, that's helpful and that's useful, except that it's not all that realistic. You know what I'm saying? But Kara Kaczynski is a mom also and has kids who are on the spectrum, and she would say, well, that's really good information. How can we put that into his life? How can we get that working in his life? And what can we, how can we do that? That's one of the many things that I love about Kara Kaczynski. You need to check out her books. And again, her books are also available through Future Horizons and from Jessica Kingsley Publishing. So you can find them on Amazon, you can find them on Future Horizon, and you can also find them on Jessica Kingsley Publishing. All right, moving on, because I want to make sure that we have time for everything. We're running out of time already. We had a chance to meet up close and personal with Milo the robot. So we've had him on the show before, but only via Skype, and he was adorable. So check this out. This is Milo. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I am here at the Future Horizon Autism Super Conference in Dallas, Texas. We're here with a very special friend, Milo from RoboKind. Milo, we're so thrilled to be here with us. I wonder if you could tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I make learning fun and exciting while being your friend. As As I talk, I show icons on my chest, videos on tablets, and I can repeat lessons without getting tired or angry.
Very cool. What else?
My courses for autism treatment and computer science are written by experts. I can also teach kids to be fluent in foreign languages and help elders with dementia. Now, doesn't that sound great?
Sounds fabulous. Anything else? You're a funny guy. Are you going to show us your expressions that you make? That looks like a shocked one. What else? Oh, there's anger, huh? What else have you got there? Show us something else that you do. Oh, that looks like fear, maybe. What else? Oh, happy. I like that, Milo. Anything else? Oh, are you sad? What are you sad about, Milo? What's going on, dude? I like that one, Milo. That's a good one. Any others? Oh, temper tantrum. Uh-oh. And there's the happiest of all. Do you laugh? Do you like to laugh, Milo? Oh no, that's the sad one, not the funny one. What about if something's funny? You're thinking about it. We're in danger? Danger, Will Robinson? There's you laughing. I love it. Thank you, Milo. Okay, I love me some Milo. And if you had been there, you would have seen me standing and talking to Milo endlessly. He's so realistic that you lose track of the fact that he's a robot. But my favorite is the Danger Will Robinson when he does the I know it's a really old reference for those of you who were old enough to have ever seen Lost in Space, and the robot would do this thing and he would go, Danger Will Robinson, and throw his arms around. It's hilarious. Love Milo. Robokind, you got to check him out. Okay, we've saved best for last always. I have my fabulous cows sitting here, my herd, because we are going to be giving away 3 of these cows to lucky viewers. We had an opportunity to talk with Dr. Temple Grandin. Now, there were several different opportunities that we had to talk with her, but this is the sit-down portion where she answered questions that you guys had sent in. Here she is, the fabulous Temple Grandin.
Well, I had friends when I was in high school in preferred activities like horseback riding, electronics, or model rockets. There's a tendency sometimes to just go on and on and on talking about the same thing. And this is where someone had to tell me, you're going to tell that story twice, and that's all that people are going to want to hear it. They're going to get bored with it after hearing it more than twice. Give them, say, hey, you've talked too much about that robot. Let's talk about something else. Well, let's give some examples of things that are not perfect. Okay, if a photographer's working for the National Geographic, that would be at the pinnacle of photography career. But if you go through the National Geographic, you're probably going to find some technical errors like flare in some of the pictures. But overall, it's such a great picture, even though it had flare, you still use the picture. Also, if he's a science kid, bring up the concept of absolute zero, where all atomic motion is stopped. You can never get there, you can only approach it. Get the concept across of work up to a certain standard. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's got to be up to a certain standard. Well, when I was a young kid, there were expectations for doing things that other people want. It gets back to turn taking. I had to sit through church even though I thought it was boring. That's something the other members of the family wanted to do. And there were expectations for me not to be disruptive. And most of the time I behaved. And that's just one step beyond turn-taking in board games. You've got to learn to get your turn. Sometimes you get to pick out the movie. And other times brother or sister may pick out the movie we go to. Well, one of my really important teachers was Mr. Carluck, my science teacher. And he had interesting projects for me to do. And I worked on all kinds of stuff with optical illusions. And that actually helped me in some of my cattle work because it made me pay attention to what the animals were seeing. And then that doing interesting science projects got me motivated to study, because now I had a reason for studying. Studying was a way to get to a goal of becoming a scientist. This is where a good teacher really turns a student around. Well, there's a lot of problems in the sensory system. Distorted input, sort of like pictures pixelating with a bad satellite dish, audio cutting in and out like a really bad cell phone. A lot of the sensory systems are not working normally. In my book, The Autistic Brain, I've got a whole big section in there on sensory issues. And there's an interesting new study that's come out called Environmental Enrichment is an Effective Treatment for Autism. Now, I want to make it very clear. This does not replace ABA or speech therapy. It is an adjunct. And what's done in this, and there's a paper you can get online called Environmental Enrichment's Effective Treatment for Autism. You stimulate two senses at the same time, like maybe you do an aromatherapy, a cinnamon, something like that, touch carpet. You always changing the pair of senses that you stimulate. And one of the senses is always one of the more primitive senses, smell, touch, or balance. So there's a lot of emphasis on 8 different aromatherapies, and the people were, children were evaluated baseline. Controls got ABA and speech therapy. Experimentals got this additional sensory therapy. And then after quite a few months, they evaluated them again. And the experimental group that had the treatment had significantly better behavior. This is a refereed scientific journal article, and it uses simple household things, very simple to do. Environmental enrichment is an effective treatment for autism. You can download it online. I'll tell you some things not to do. Don't say you went to sleep, because then the child might be afraid that you went to sleep. When I was very young, we were out for a walk and came across a very flat squirrel in the middle of the road that had been run over. And it was very clear that the squirrel could not be put back together again. And that made me learn not to run out in the street, because I wouldn't want to be like that squirrel. And there's no way the veterinarian could do surgery and put him back together again. I mean, basically, you know, death of a person, they are gone. They are gone. Well, Oliver Sacks is a very kindly kind of professor type of person, and I read an article he wrote in the New York Times just before he died about, you know, going back doing the Jewish Sabbath. And at the end of the article, he was talking about, well, if A, then B, then C, which way of his life could have gone down different paths. And I started really weeping when I read that article, you know, and I'm glad it went down the path that, you know, where our paths crossed. I could barely print it out. I was so upset. No, fortunately, he was writing right up until the end. And he's overall really satisfied with his life. Well, after the article appeared in the New Yorker magazine, shortly after that, an agent appeared that suggested that I ought to write a book. And that's what brought the book Thinking in Pictures into being.
Welcome back. It's just part of the interview with her, but I gotta say, some of the questions that you guys wrote in were really wonderful, and it was so wonderful to hear Temple talking about her relationship with Oliver Sacks and what an influence, and honestly to see the amount of emotion. You know, the first time when I read about her reaction to hearing that Oliver Sacks had died and the fact that she sat down and wept, even as many times as I've met Temple, it was one of those things I was like, oh yeah, you know, like I think a lot of times we idealize her to the point where we think that she's above those kinds of emotions, and she's so not. We had such a good time with her and sat, and at lunch, she and Jem got to giggling over, they were talking about an article. She was telling Jim about Business Weekly and saying that we should subscribe to Business Weekly for Jem because the articles are so interesting. And she was talking about how they took a bunch of gourmet dog foods and they did taste tests, comparisons, and paired them with different wines, dog food. And she got to giggling about it, and Jem got to giggling, and the two of them sat and giggled at the table And then, of course, Kelby and I started giggling. It was hilarious. It was so much fun. And I'll be honest with you, you know, it's so great to hear her talk about autism and to hear her give advice to us and to teachers and to parents and to individuals who are on the spectrum. But I said to her, you know, the first interview that Oliver Sacks did with you, we got to see more of the human side of you, Temple, than we've had since then. And I said, I really want to stop that. So she agreed to go in the car with us, and we talked just real people kinds of stuff in the car, and I can't wait to see it, and I know you guys can't wait to see it too, and we'll give you an update about when that's going to be available. But thrilled that we had an opportunity to talk with Temple. Now, I will also tell you that part of this trip to Texas, I have family that lives in Texas, and I don't get to Texas very often, and since the last time I had been to Texas, I got to meet the great Dr. Dorothea Lerman. And Dr. Lerman had said to me years ago, we were talking, and she said she lived in Houston, and I said, oh, NASA, and she said, yes, you know, my husband works for NASA, and I said, oh, you know, my son is so interested in space, especially the first time I met her, which would have been like 4 years ago, that was everything to my son, everything. And if you asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, he would have told you he was going to be a rocket engineer. He would be very succinct with you and tell you he did not want to fly in a rocket, he did not want to go to the moon or go to Mars or any place, but he wanted to be on the team that made the rocket. And then it kind of morphed into he was interested in making the robots, because we've been very interested in the Mars rovers. We have the NASA version that does the robots here close to home, and anytime they do an open house, we go to those. So I was telling this to Dr. Lerman, and she said, well, if you come to the Houston area, you must let me know, and we'll arrange a tour, because my husband works for NASA. And she didn't really tell me what he did, but she said, but you can get an interview, you can get a tour that is beyond anything else. So we hooked up with Dr. Lerman, and I let her know, and she introduced me via email to her husband, Dr. Robert Dempsey, who, you ready for this? He happens to be one of the flight directors for the International Space Station. Woo! Pretty high up, right? So he invited us to come to Houston. We went there two weeks ago, Thursday. And Kelby, first, if we can show the big Saturn V pictures. You got a preview of this a little bit earlier. So here is this amazing thing. There is a huge, huge building outdoors that anybody can go into. It's totally free. And I don't know if you can get a perspective of how long this thing is, but it is mammoth. It's a Saturn V rocket that never went out into space. It was getting ready to, and the program was cut. And we were fascinated. If you've subscribed to us on Periscope, we did a couple of live periscopes from this hangar, Gemini, because we had like an hour, and we had the little Temple Grandin cows, and we were putting, there's green grass that's all AstroTurf that's around the Saturn V rocket. You can't walk directly up to it. It's got fencing, but there's the grass underneath it, and we were putting the cow on the grass. So check out our Periscope. It's Autism Live. But you can't even imagine how big this thing is. You got to go see it. But then Dr. Dempsey came and met us at the hangar, and he took us. First, we got to go into the building that I was calling it the astronaut playground, but it's the building where they have all the simulators, in-flight simulators, and for every single component of the International Space Station, they have a simulator. And so there's a part where they're doing research on different things. There's one where they had the docking. That's it right there, Kelby. So they sit there. There was an operator. You can't see him, but he's on the other side, and he was sitting there practicing docking, because they have a new way that they are doing docking. Amazing. Now, normally you get to see this from a catwalk, and you look through plexiglass. They call it the Habitrail, because you're like gerbils walking through it, and you can only see. We got to go down on the floor. We didn't actually get to go into any of the simulations, right, because it's millions and trillions of dollars worth of equipment. But to be there with somebody and to see, they have a replica of the space station that's there, you know, and you can keep referencing, but then they have each component of it in a different place in this big room where you can go around and people can go in and run simulations and run science experiments, and that it was just mind-blowing. It was so fascinating to me because Jem got very quiet and he wasn't asking any questions, and he even, like, to the, you know, to somebody who isn't experienced, it might have looked like he just didn't care, but he started to hum. And he was and making these little noises. It was his vocal stereotypy, which he doesn't normally do except when he's really under a lot of anxiety or there's something that's really amazing and he's having to, like, push down on something. So I knew that stuff was up, but I didn't quite know what, and I was kind of leaving it alone because I was like, oh, what's going on? And then they took us over to the control center where they have all of the different flight centers. And we got to see a couple of different things there. And then they took us into what I call the green room, which is where they ran all of the missions for all of the Apollo missions and part of the shuttle. And we got to be there. I mean, there it is. There's my kid sitting there at one of the desks, and I got emotional. I started to cry when we walked into the room, and you know, I saw the American flag standing there, and in the one corner, I don't think I have a picture of it, Kelby, but they have one of the flags that flew on the moon is in that room, and I just started to cry. And I said to Dr. Dempsey, I said, is this a little embarrassing? And we have a picture of Dr. Dempsey at the flight director desk in that room. There he is, amazing gentleman. And I said, is this embarrassing that I'm getting emotional? He said, no, I got to be honest with you. It means so much to us that it means that much to you. We hope that. And there were 3 different rooms that they had for where they have command centers. Eventually, they took us into the one that it will be the new room where they'll be running all the future missions. But then we got to go into the room where they were talking to the International Space Station. And we got to observe, we sat up in the observatory deck because they were running an actual, there was a Russian pod that had been launched that had supplies. I guess like once a week, the Russians shoot off this thing, and it's a pod. It goes up and it connects with the space station. It docks, and they, you know, get all kinds of goodies from home and whatever they need, you know, food and that kind of thing. And so we were there during the hour in which it was docking. We weren't allowed to be in the room while it was docking because, you know, lives at stake, right? But we were there up until like 10 minutes before it docked. We got to watch the International Space Station. It was when we first were in there, and there were all these screens showing all of these different things. We could see that it was over ocean. And then there's a big map that shows you the trajectory, and it goes around the world every 90 minutes. It makes a full rotation around the world, which is mind-boggling, right? And we were there for probably 40 minutes of that 90 minutes. So we were looking at the map, and it's got this little space shuttle on the map, and we're just looking at ocean. And I think it was Jem who said, oh, well, we're coming up on Australia. And then 30 seconds later, you saw the edge of Australia come into the live picture. It was fascinating. And then, you know, 8 minutes later, it's out of Australia and it's headed. It was just fascinating. And then we were watching, there was one camera that showed the view from the Russian pod, and then there was another view that showed the view from the space station, and we got to watch it approach until they could see each other in the void. Oh my gosh. And of course, part of the time when they're in the 90 minutes, they're in daylight, and then part of the time they're at nighttime, right? Because half the world's in nighttime. Let me just say, you guys, it was so thrilling. And my son didn't say too much the whole time that we were there, and we eventually left, and we had a long ride home. It was like 4.5 hours to get home, and or get back to Dallas, not home, but where we were staying. And I think the first 3 hours, my kid talked nonstop. And he was like, and did you see this? And did you notice this? And what was really cool was, and you know how they did, and he just talked. I was sad that Dr. Dempsey didn't get to be there for that, but I wrote him a note and told him about it. And when we were with Dr. Dempsey and he was driving us on the campus, on the NASA campus from one building to the other, we had an opportunity to talk. And I said to him, did you always know that you wanted to be in the space program? And he said, yeah, when I was a kid. He goes, but a lot of kids want to be in the space program, but then they grow out of it. And he said, Jem, did you? And Jem said, yeah, but he was being not very conversant. And I said, I don't know, though, that that's the case anymore, that Jem tends to be much more about computers. And Dr. Dempsey said, well, we'll see what he says after today. And that's all he's talked about is the science program. And about NASA and space, and it was a really, really amazing thing. And I want to say this to all of us, myself included, that, being with Temple, and probably on Thursday we'll have an opportunity to talk more about when we had lunch, but one of the things that Temple has always said to me and to other parents, she's so interested in talking about her kids, but she always says, find out what your kid is interested in and feed them about that. Feed them about that. And I know many of you write in and say, well, I don't know what my kid is interested in. And I think that that's a tough road until you find exactly what it is that your kid is interested in. But I talk a lot on the show about the book that I read, A Real Boy by Christina Adams. And she talks in that book about, there were things that her son was interested in, like he was interested in the vacuum cleaner. And her saying, well, Temple Grandin says you're supposed to, but what am I supposed to do? Take him to a vacuum cleaner factory? Like, what do you do with this? But she also discovered that because of the moving parts, they went to the airport, and the moving parts from the vacuum cleaner translated to airplanes. Because it's when you think about it, they're kind of related, right? And then what she did was she went to a pilot and said, yeah, I've got this 7-year-old kid and I want to bring him out and have you sit in the cockpit with him, and I want to pay you to do, and it was tough. She didn't really have the money to be able to afford it, but she fed that interest. Now, I don't know that her son went into airline or being, I know that he's interested in fashion and that actually can make things and knows his way around a sewing machine. So it's interesting how things morph and change, but if you think about it, there is a through line through all of those things, machinery and making something and changing your environment with machinery. People thought I was crazy for making the big long trip to Houston, and I know for a fact that I wasn't. Boy, that will be with me and with my child forever. We want to say I'm going to get emotional. We want to say a big thank you to Dr. Dorothea Lerman for connecting us with that, and to her fabulous husband, Dr. Dempsey, for making the time to take us. I'm 100% sure that he couldn't possibly know what an effect it had on me and my son. But just that 3 hours of him yakking about space was, money can't buy that, right? Anyway, we're out of time. I want to tell you that tomorrow on the show, first hour, Dr. Doreen Gramshay, tons of questions we have for her, but you can send in more. Second hour, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Here's the lineup. You ready? Vince Redmond is going to be with us. And that's going to be, normally that's a whole show for us. But then we have 2 gentlemen from Raymond Rocks who are going to be with us. They're bringing some diamonds, y'all. And we're going to talk about the diamonds that they're donating to Autism Care and Treatment Today to raise money for grants, and why we should be interested in diamonds that we can't afford, right? Because there's a very interesting thing. If you have enough money for a raffle ticket, you might be a diamond owner. And then in the last half of the show, we have an amazing woman who's being honored this year at Denim and Diamonds as the Cowgirl Award. She is an agent, a talent agent here in Los Angeles, who represents some of your most favorite child actors. So you're going to love it. Make sure that you're here for that. We're out of time. Until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you as well. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.